Welcome, everyone. It's Bible study time. Always excited about coming for y'all. Today is absolutely no different. Today we're going to kind of recap. We're going to not really recap. We're going to rewind because I didn't really speak to this when I passed it in Genesis, but it's been on my mind, y'all. It's been on my mind, this whole conversation for the last, since I did my Bible study, it's been on my mind. Not my Bible study, my Sunday service, it's been on my mind. So I'm going to speak to it today. We're going to speak to Melchizedek today, the king of Salem, and the king of peace, and the king of righteousness, and all of that. This mysterious figure that is spoken to in the Old Testament. We're going to speak to Melchizedek, but we're also going to cross-reference these 9 kings, this battle in the valley of Siddem, that brings this king forward. And the reason why I'm going to speak to this is because we are embarking upon our journey through the Old Testament at this point. We're speaking to the life of David. And what we're going to be coming into within the next week or the next weeks, is the story of David having this confrontational issue with his son, Absalom. Let's invoke the Spirit of God, and then we'll get into this, okay? Because I'm putting the buggy before the horse. Heavenly Father, I come before you in love, always looking for you, always looking to be the highest representation of you that I can be. And I know that I'm still in my infancy stage, Father. I have graduated from crawling to leaning on the ends of tables, but I'm still an infant. Guide and direct me, Father. Lend me your essence. Use me as your vessel to convey your truths to the children in honesty and integrity. Lessen me and magnify you. And whatever is crooked, I ask that in love and in patience, that you straighten it. Knowing that I know no better than what I know. Yet that I am open and flexible and always willing to graduate and to learn. Have your way in this space. And in God's name I pray, amen. All right, y'all. So today like I said, we're going to speak to Melchizedek today. We're not really going to go in on the story of David because we're coming up out of that at this junction in the Bible where we're going to be embarking upon in regards to the story of David, which will be another day. We are seeing the actualizations of the reprimand that God chastened David with because of what he did to Uriah the Hittite. And this curse would come in the form of David's bloodline. He would have issues with his children, all because of what David did to Uriah the Hittite. And this bloodline curse would come in the form of many different things, but it would lead to a monumental apex in the form of him warring with his son Absalom. And then Absalom somewhat dethroning his father and sending David into exile. And while in exile, David would lean on his high priest, Zadok. You see, David had 3 people that he rolled with, y'all. After David came out of his struggle with Saul, it really changed David. David got to see what was important, all by his wrestlings with Saul. And so after he comes up out of that, he cuts the fat. While he's running from Saul, he gets real lean. That's what the tribulation periods do to you. They get you real lean. You will cut all of the fat. You'll trim the fat. Not intentionally, but it's just a natural result of the physical fitness, the physicality of the tribulation period. Being on the run, always on the go, always on edge, always looking for a word. All of that keeps you real agile. And it starves out all the things that you don't need. So while David is in his kingsmanship and his years of comfort and stability, he never forgets what it took to get him there. And he has three people that are always at his side. Nathan the prophet, Benaiah the warrior, and Zadok the priest. Abiathar the priest, actually. So there's four. But for the most part, Nathan, Benaiah, and Zadok. Because Zadok overshadows Abiathar. But today we're going to speak to what brings all of this about. How the house of Zadok becomes ingrained in the hearts and minds of people. When you hear it, it's a supernatural type of thing that you have going on with it. Because it's not just the priesthood. The house of Zadok is not just the priestly portion of things like the Levites are. No, the house of Zadok, in a sense, is a step above the Levitical priesthood. They are both priesthoods, but they have different spiritual postures. The house of Zadok is a much more serious natured house than the Levitical priesthood. You see, what we will find in the Bible is that the Levites would be weaned out because they would not be able to keep a level of righteousness going on within that priesthood. They would not be able to keep the integrity of the priesthood intact amongst one another as it related to the Levites in general. The Levites, people say the house of Zadok saw the priesthood, the Zadok priesthood saw through the eyes of God. And the Levitical priesthood saw through the eyes of the people. This is really interesting because when I heard it, I thought that's very true. The Levites would be the priests that would establish the tabernacle. They'd be the ringers of the alarm. They would sound the trumpet. They did all the offerings and all the holy things in the central location, which was the tabernacle. Yet they would become corrupted. They would do things that would contaminate their role. Mingling with women and doing all kinds of things with the women, using their titles for profit, bending rules. They saw through the eyes of the people. They could be corrupted. They could be swayed. They could be like Saul and try to appease the people, not really be too strict because the laws of God were too strict. So the people will give them pushback and the Levites would be like, okay, well, I'll turn a blind eye this time. that type of thing. They cut corners. Yet the house of Zadok is not like this. They wouldn't maintain their level of purity regardless. When we look at chapter 15 of the book of Genesis, when we look at chapter 14 of the book of Genesis, we find Abram in a pivotal place. Up to this point, Abram has already come out of Egypt with Sarah with a monumental bounty. They've already gotten a lot of substance from the Egyptians up to this point. And they're settled in a particular area. And upon settling, they have so much substance that it's hard for Abram and his nephew Lot to reside by one another. I don't know what that means, but okay. So Abram and his nephew Lot have so much substance that it's hard for them to reside comfortably next to one another. And there becomes an issue between Abram's herdsmen of his flock and Lot, his nephew's herdsman of his flock. And because of this, there's a dispute. And Abram says, okay, look, we gotten too large. God has allowed us to have accumulate a lot of substance, most of which was gained from what they got from the Egyptians. You go this way, I go that way. And they break apart. And while Abram is tending his flock and relaxing in his land, Lot goes and he moves and goes into the land of Sodom and Gomorrah. And while he's in the land of Sodom and Gomorrah, there's a war that erupts. This is very important. This war that erupts is a war, it's the first war of the time that Abram and Lot lived in, of its stature. It's a huge falling out. So I'm going to read it and then I'll break it down. Chapter 14, verse 1. It came to pass in the days of Amraphel, king of Shinar. Amraphel is Nimrod. Okay. So in the days of Nimrod, king of Shinar, Arioch, king of Elasar, Cadlaomer, king of Elam, and Tidal, king of nations, that these made war with Bera, king of Sodom, and with Bersha, king of Gomorrah, Shinab, king of Admah, and Shemimber, king of Zeboam, and the king of Bela, which is Zoar. So, to simplify it, king of Elam, Nimrod, king of Elasar, and Tidal, king of nations. They've all combined themselves together to wage war with Sodom and Gomorrah, other nations. Follow me. These nations that Nimrod and the other kings are packing up together to wage war with are smaller city states that reside or that share one common area. It's the valley of Siddem. They all share this valley. They're all situated round about this one valley area. This is a watery area. It has water, a nice watery oceanfront area, but it's a valley. And the king that starts this whole scenario is named, and I got to get his name right because it's a weird name, Chedorlaomer, king of Elam. So what Chedorlaomer would do to these city-states of Sodom and Gomorrah and these other four that share the valley of Siddem, he's kind of like extorting these people. Chedorlaomer is extorting these people that share the valley of Siddem. And he's making them give him money in order to live in peace. And this was normal during this time. This is why a lot of nations linked up with one another. They did it for safety. And they did this for, the Bible says 12 years they served Chedorlaomer. And in the 13th year, they rebelled. They said, I don't want to pay you no more. We don't feel like we need to pay you. We feel as if we're strong enough to defend ourselves against you and come up from out of this because we're tired of it. So for 12 years, they suffered in being extorted by this monumental king. These are mighty nations, y'all. Out of fear. Until they get to a point where they say, okay, I can kind of see how to get up out of this. We might need to go to war with them. We feel stronger about it. We've learned more about these people. We see how they are. We feel strong enough to challenge them. So in the 13th year, they say, we're not paying you no more. We already know what's going to come from this. So let's get to it. And in the 14th year, came Chedorlaomer and the kings that were with him and smote the Rephaims and the and Ashtaroth, Karnaim, and the Zuzims and Ham, and the Emims and Shenivah, Kirianithium. I don't know how to spell it. I don't know how to pronounce it. Kiriathium. So basically what the Bible is saying is in the 14th year, Chedorlaomer and these other kings, Nimrod, Arioch, Chedorlaomer, and Tidal, all now come together and they act. They come together to act against these states that decided that they were no longer going to pay them money, that they would no longer allow them to extort them. So what they do is they cut off all of their travel ways. They box them in. They make it difficult for them to buy and sell. They make it difficult for them to move around. All of their surrounding highways and all of their byways, all of their areas of entrance and exits, they sabotage. They sabotage all of their relationships. They're trying to starve these people out. They're saying, okay, you don't want to wait, you don't want to pay us, we're gonna take all you got. We're going to starve you. The king of Sodom and the king of Gomorrah, all these different kings that were being extorted by this king and that has now decided that they no longer want to be extorted, group together and they go to war. And they go to war in the valley of Siddem. And the valley of Siddem have slime pits in them, natural occurring slime pits. And they wage war, and these kings, the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah and all of these other states, they fall. They lose the war. Now, in order for you to understand how monumental this is a huge war. Like, there was no war like this. This is the biggest war of the Old Testament. This war right here. And this is the war that puts Abram really on the map. Because Abram don't have a dog in this fight. He doesn't care. The nations that are warring are outside of the house of Israel. When we look at Nimrod, king of Shinar, we already know the story of Nimrod. We went over that. He was a Hebrew. By nature he is, but he's been turned. He's not aligned to the house of Israel any longer. He's not aligned to the house of Israel. He's turned his back. He's convoluted the sacred nature of the house. He's been turned. When we look at Arioch, king of Elasar, he's not a Gentile. Nimrod is not a Gentile. Kedorlaomer, king of Elam, is not a Gentile. Yet Tidal, king of nations, is. How do we know this? When you look at this in the Apocrypha, I've been looking at videos on this just to refresh myself to it, because I paid attention to this for quite some time. Did I not do that? I paid attention to this for quite some time, but I hadn't brushed up on it. When we look at Tidal, king of nations, why does it say that? Well, in the book of Jasher, the story is the same as the Judeo-Christian Bible, but it's a little bit more detail-oriented. It says here in the book of Jasher, chapter 16, verse 1, at the time, Kedorlaomer, king of Elam, sent to all the neighboring kings to Nimrod, king of Shinar, who was then under his power, and to Tidal, king of Goyim. That's interesting. And to Arioch, king of Eliezer, with whom he made a covenant, saying, come up to me and assist me, that we may strike all the towns of Sodom and its inhabitants, for they have rebelled against me this 13 years. And these four kings went up with their camps, about 800,000 men. This is how I know that these other kings were not the Gentile nations. The Gentile nations are the nations of the Goyim. These created individuals that I spoke to in the past. Maybe I'll do something else on the Goyim. Remember, I spoke to the creation of these beings. They brought these beings were brought into existence because they were birthed with no karma. There was a huge issue at one time with this whole karmic debt thing. It seemed as if there had reached a pinnacle within the walk of the Hebraic house and just people in general, non-Hebrews, of amassing substantial amounts of karmic debt. Activities that you had to pay for, that didn't serve you. And it was as if they would not be able to overcome the karmic debt. They were always in a deficit. Because lifetimes and lifetimes of amassing such debt just follow you. It seems as if even in lifetimes they were not able to come from up under karmic debts that they had accrued just within that life cycle. That's how monumental the karmic debt was. So someone, I'm not going to get into that in this Bible study, but some group of people decided to create these Goyim beings born into the world without any karmic debt. They mastered the art of creating a being with zero karma. Title, King of Nations, is the king of this group of people. So we see the Gentiles and we see those that are non-Gentile coming together to wage war against the inhabitants of this particular region that share one valley, the Valley of Siddem. And what happens is, in them coming against Sodom and Gomorrah, they defeat Sodom and Gomorrah, and they take Sodom, all the inhabitants. Not just the inhabitants of Sodom and Gomorrah. They take the inhabitants of the surrounding area, all of the nations that I spoke to that were surrounding this particular region, and that were to pay the king of Elam his extortion fee, and rebelled against that. And of these people is Abrams' nephew, Lot. So one of Lot's servants that was there at the fight and got away runs and tells Abram and says, Abram, Lot has been taken. All of the people have been taken by these 4 kings. And this is interesting what Abram does. Now, at this point, Abram has already, like I said, become a very wealthy man by way of what he was blessed with when leaving Egypt. He's sitting fat. He's got servants. He's got cattle. He's a very wealthy man. So was Lot. And in their amassed wealth, they were wise enough to create a small warrior class of people to protect them and their stuff. This is where the Bible comes in, and it speaks to chapter 14. Verse 14. And when Abram heard that his brother was taken captive, he armed his trained servants born in his own house, 318, and pursued them to Dan. And he divided himself against them, he and his servants, by night, and smote them and pursued them to Haba, which was on the left hand of Damascus. Abram, the Apocrypha gives again a greater account of what is going on. Abram gathers 318 of his soldiers. These are warriors that Abram gathers. Only 318. Remember, the Apocrypha says that these nations had 800,000 men. So 318 men go to wage war against 800,000 men. Nobody would have ever thought that Abram would have been successful. This is a suicide mission. And the only reason why Abram is involved in this is because of his brother Lot, his nephew Lot. Brother's son. And they come up with a attack method to approach them at night, because they know that during the daytime, if this vast army of men see that Abram only has 318 men coming towards them, they're going to psychologically feel capable. So Abram employs a ancient tactic that was used before him. And they break up the 318 men, and they come upon them at night. Different areas. And just as they would if they had a large army, they make it seem as if this group of men that are coming upon them are just the initial men that most large armies use to attack. You see, when large armies in ancient times would attack, the whole army would not just bum rush the area. They would send out groups at a time in intervals. So that introductory group would usually be a small group. And then if that didn't work, then reinforcements would come, and then reinforcements would come, and they would come in waves. So what they did was they made it seem like they are a large army, because the audacity of Abram, 318 men, to even think that they could battle 800,000 men was a suicide mission, friend. Nobody would ever try it. But because Abram had faith and knowing, he tried it. He had audacity. He wasn't foolish, but he had audacity because it was something he loved. Friend, when you know you are leading in truth, in righteousness as much as you possibly can in a physical vessel, and love, you will be audacious. You will say, "I be darned. Surely God spoke to me. I have had a face-to-face with God. God has led me all these different ways. Through hell and high water, God has led me. And I didn't get the full scope of what I was going to deal with not one time. I walked on faith each and every single time. And now you mean to tell me you're going to come against me and challenge something that I love? Friend, there's not a mountain high enough. Surely it's 800,000 of y'all. That's 1,000,000, basically. But I don't care. This means something to me. It might not mean nothing to you. I don't have nothing to do with what y'all got going on. And I really don't want to be bothered with it. But you must part ways with what I love. You got to. Or you're going to have to lay me down. And in you laying me down, you will teach me something, friend. You will teach me something about this God that I've honored and I walk with in integrity and in the light. When it was not fashionable, against all odds. You will show me an aspect of this God that I walk with and that I have openly proclaimed the truth of. Because I'm coming for what I love. Come hell or high water, friend. I'm coming through. Abram goes with 318 men. Amongst 800,000. And he defeats them. Nowhere in the text does Abram say that God told him to do it. Nowhere in the text does it say that God gave Abram insight on how to do it. Abram knows he's leading from integrity. He knows that this is a cabal, a link, a tether that cannot be broken. That if you come to try to break it, you're going to have to see him. There's going to be consequences and repercussions from it. Yet when they take his nephew, his brother's son, and all of his belongings, they forced his hand. They brought him into something that had nothing to do with him. Yet it will be all divinely orchestrated by God. How do I know this? Because God would know the heart of Abram. Friend, I'm here to tell you, God knows your negotiables and God knows your non-negotiables. God knows what you will not deny. And God knows the things that you'll overlook. God would allow a sequence of events for Abram and Lot to part ways. And then for Lot to be taken captive by men that go around siphoning resources from innocent people, vampires. That's exactly what these people are. They're vampiric. Friend, anyone is vampiric that comes and eats off of your plate without your authorization, that forces your hand in them partaking of your stuff, but that give you nothing, that feed off of your fear and your weakness, because that's what fear is. They're vampires. You got proud, boastful vampires out here, friend. They walk around here with their collar turned up and they're happy to be looked upon like a vampire. Yet they go to church every Sunday. It's amazing. Out of their whole existence, out of all the time that we have in a day, we all share the same 24 hours. All they can do is plot on sourcing people and then aligning to them in what looks like goodwill, only to sabotage or to be vampiric in nature, to siphon whatever they have. This is your so-called destiny swappers. They mimic you. They want to be you. They're so mesmerized by your I am and your love for what you do that they want that. They want to step into that and just be that, not knowing what it took to build that up and to really be that. This is that. And these people said, no, I'm not doing this no more. And in them saying no, they revolt, they buck, and they get defeated. Yet God would say no. In their defeat, there would be one amongst them that was not of them, that had the love of someone God loved. Someone that had a mighty promise over him, that loved people that were affected by such. And the love that Abram had provoked him into action immediately with the least 318 home-trained warriors. He defeated 800,000 men. Verse 15 of chapter 14. And he divided himself again, he and his servants, by night, and smote them, and pursued them to Hobah, which is on the left hand of Damascus. And he brought back all the goods, and also brought again his brother Lot, and his goods, and the women also, and the people. And the king of Sodom went out to meet him after this, and after his return from the slaughter of Chedorlaomer, and of the kings that were with him at the valley of Shaveh, which is in the king's dale. This word gets good. This is what has to do with Zadok. After he defeats these kings, they're backtracking. They're going back down through the area where the war happened, the valley of Siddem, and to bless him. Verse 19, and he blessed him and said, blessed be Abram of the Most High God, possessor of heaven and earth. And blessed be the Most High God, which have delivered thine enemies into thine hand. And he gave him tithes of all. Abram did not need a word from God to act in love. Abram would need, this is a word for all of y'all. You don't have to wait on permission to act in love, friend. You are the executor of your estate. You are the executor of your avatar and of your vine. You are the head and not the tail. This situation that Abram was posed with was another test, a monumental one. Yet Abram would not know that it was a test. All Abram would know was that what he loved was being challenged. His vine. Friend, when people come upon you to challenge your existence, when they come upon you to challenge that which you love, that is yours, it is for you to make executive decisions regarding it. It is not for you to tarry and wait for God to come and give you a word. What type of ownership do you have? What type of leadership skill do you possess? If you cannot lead your own flock, if you cannot manage your own stuff, if you need permission each and every interval, when we fast forward this, Melchizedek situation to 2 Samuel, When David is running and exiled by his son Absalom, he doesn't get a word from God each step of the way as he did. Well, he never got a word from God when he ran from Saul. David doesn't get a word from God each step of the way as to what to do. At this point in 2 Samuel chapter 15, David is exiled from his own kingdom by his son. And he relies on Zadok of the line of Melchizedek, the priesthood, to be his seer, to be his buffer between he and God. He doesn't rely on Nathan. He needs a pure vessel that cannot be corrupted. Not that Nathan could. To be the buffer between him and God in this delicate situation. And David says in chapter 15, verse 27, and the king said also unto Zadok the priest, art thou not a seer? Return into the city in peace. Listen. And your 2 sons with you, Ahimaaz thy son, and Jonathan the son of Abiathar. See, I will tarry in the plain of the wilderness until there come word from you to certify me. David is defaulting back to this same man's vine, Melchizedek, in a pivotal time to see how God will reestablish him in his own kingdom. Because the king knows that this is not some happenstance that has come upon him. The king knows that this is something he brought upon himself by way of what he did to Uriah the Hittite. All of this chaos in his own house and between he and his children will come upon David because of what David did to another man. Because Bathsheba was pregnant with child by him. Melchizedek will come upon Abram and establish Abram. Abram has already been selected and created a covenant with God. But Abram would need to experience certain things as tests to prove himself. And this deep act of love and integrity and character and loyalty, this is loyalty. And this is not loyalty to some riffraff. This is loyalty to things that matter. This is all leadership stuff. Abram didn't care nothing about the fact that he had 318 men. Had he had 2, he would have went to war with 2. 318 men against 800,000 is just like going to war with 2. He made do with what he had because of his knowing. And he allowed love, truth, to make up the difference. And it did. And this is what God needed to see of Abram. He didn't care what it looked like. I believe in miracles. I believe in the impossible. I believe in the unseen more than I believe in what I see. This is what Abram is speaking without saying it. And he comes out victorious. And immediately after, he is met by the high priest. He is met by the King of peace, by the King of righteousness. And he is blessed and established. He is reinforced, anointed, and has powerful words of goodness spoken over him that cover him with a force field of vibration. Reinforcing the vibration that God already cast on him. Friend, anyone coming against Abram is doing themselves dirty from this point on. Yet he carries himself in a way that he doesn't allow it to go to his head. He doesn't misuse it. He honors it. He will go on from there to issues with other nations and do the same thing he did with Sarah and say, this is my sister. He's still meek. He's still humble. Yet he pities anybody that looks to challenge it. Because he knows the power of it. He knows the wisdom of it. And the king of Sodom and Gomorrah says, can we just get all of our goods, our people back, and you can have all the goods? The king of Sodom and Gomorrah is thinking, okay, I've heard about this Abram guy. He already left Egypt rich. Maybe he'll give us our people back if we tell him he can have all the goods. And Abram is saying, friend, did you not just hear what Melchizedek just said to me? Do you not understand the blessing that's over my life? He's saying, friend, I know I look like I'm just some farmer, but I can feel it in my fingers. Do you think I care about your stuff? Do you think that's why I came over here and helped you? It's because I want your stuff? Friend, the only thing that led me to you is because you've got something I love amongst you. And by default, you've been blessed. Abram is saying, friend, I come with gifts. Monumental blessings. They follow me everywhere I go. I can either be a gift to you or I could be a curse to you. It's up to you. And how you deal with me and how you deal with what I love. I'm a blessing to you because I helped you get back what you lost. But I'm a curse to these four kings, friend. These four kings are humiliated because of their interaction with what I love. And he says it to him, friend, I don't want your stuff. Abram said unto him, I have lifted up my hand unto the Lord, the Most High God, the possessor of heaven and earth, that I will not take from a thread, even a shoe latchet, and that I will not take anything that is thine, lest thou shouldest say, I have made Abram rich. Friend, you think I care about that little bit of money? Friend. I am wealthy beyond measure, friend. Rich is not strong enough word to convey the level of wealth in which I possess. All of my needs are met quickly. I am well taken care of. I am the apple of my father and my mother's eye. And I do my best by them every time, wherever I am, and in whatever capacity I am in. Directly after this, chapter 15 opens up. And after these things, the word of the Lord came unto Abram in a vision, saying, Fear not, Abram. I am thy shield and thy exceeding great reward. And God will go on to tell Abram to come outside and look in the sky. Count the stars. And if you're able to number them, so shall your seed be. Everything Abram got, Abram earned. God made Abram earn everything. He wasn't given nothing. Neither was David. And neither will you and I. We earn everything. And in your earning it, you know how to care for it. You know its value. You protect it. This is my Bible study for you today. Always looking to be useful to you. Melchizedek. Enough for now. You're loved more than you'll ever know. I'll never stop telling you. Be good to yourselves and be good to one another. Peace and love.